Hear a revolution in talk radio. Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. This broadcast is being brought to you live on Monday morning, January 26th, 2015. It is now about 8:02 Central Time in what was once known as the good old USA. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. During our live broadcast, we invite you to call 646-652-4620. That's 646-652-4620. Our toll-free number is 888-773-4496. Well, good morning, everyone. Much has been said and commented on regarding the President's State of the Union message. In fact, I would venture to say that a plethora of the comments were criticisms of what the President said. And I'm in accord with that, by the way. What was not said is what they would say. In other words, it is okay to criticize a statement, but you better have an alternative. Well, this morning we have a treat for you. I'm going to present to you a list of items that the President should have included. If not all, but at least some of these should have been included in his State of the Union message. Now, one thing that you will probably recognize is that what I have to say is very specific. There are no platitudes. It is not backward looking, it is forward looking. So I will sort of play the part of the President and then go through a list of items. Some of these will be very distasteful, and most of it will be very difficult to implement because we are in a quasi-same position as the Greek economy. Now, they're an extreme case of where we are today, with a tremendous amount of debt, with an aging population, with a lessening of the purchasing power of the average citizen, and increased unemployment. Now, I know many of you say, well, no, our unemployment is going down. Our unemployment is going down only because more people are dropping out of the workplace. In other words, if everyone, the way our government calculates unemployment, if everyone stopped looking for a job, everyone stayed home, drank beer and watched basketball games all day, we would have zero unemployment. Understand that, all right? So our unemployment is quite high. Where we really are suffering right now is from underemployment, which eventually results in unemployment because we are not creating the type of jobs that match the skills of the people. Now, there's a reason for that, and most of the reason is because the government itself has interfered with the free marketplace, and it is now unattractive for people to start businesses. The government requires just too much. In fact, I was listening to an interview on the Kaiser Report just last weekend, And there was a gentleman who's an American who now resides part-time in Mexico. He is not a citizen of Mexico. He did not denounce his citizenship or anything like that of the United States. But he said, if you are a business person in Mexico, now if you're a person of no means and you're a peasant, you're going to see life is very, very tough. There's very few places that you can go, and it's very difficult to climb the ladder. However, if you have some skills and you have a business and you go to Mexico, you are freer in Mexico than you are in the United States. Now, this is something that no one wants you to know, because we want to perpetuate the facade that we are the world's freest nation when we are not. In fact, we are plummeting in the rankings in that regard. In fact, we are so low now that most countries around the world, industrial countries around the world, are actually freer than we are. All right, so understand that. So what we need to do is we need to preclude from becoming a Greece, which that's exactly where we're heading. And we have to get away from this concept which has failed society, failed civilization for over 4,000 years. And that's that old saying, to him according to his needs, from him according to his abilities. The Pilgrims tried that. They starved to death. They literally died off until they said, all right, everyone's on their own. And then they had a bountiful harvest, and they prospered. I mean, we can't learn from history. It just seems that history is there to tell us exactly what to do. We don't need to rewrite the book. We don't need to invent formulas. We don't need hedge fund managers. We need to be left alone as individuals, so each person becomes a universe, a productive universe within themselves. And they become productive. And in becoming productive, they become profitable, but at the same time, they improve the lot of society. How often do you hear that, these people make too much? There's a division between the rich and the poor. It's really not between the rich and the poor. Don't be fooled by that. That's government talk. It's between the connected and the unconnected. I am one of the unconnected. I would be a billionaire or near a multi-millionaire if I was part of the connected society. Now, understanding that, let's play along, all right? Now, I'm going to play the part of the President of the United States, and I assume I would start off by saying, my fellow Americans, Mr. Speaker, members of the House and Senate, I bring before you a roadmap for America to bring it back from the malaise that we've been in and to prevent it from becoming a third world nation, to revise it back to its former glory. It will not be easy. In fact, it will be painful, but even more so, it'll be very distasteful on the surface. But once we peel away at what the true intent of each one of these propositions are, we will find that it benefits everyone in society. All right? Now, here is what I would have said. Now, all of these items I don't anticipate will be enacted, but I wanted to set a direction. Our looming debt needs to be reduced through the elimination of programs initiated by the federal government. And all programs should be eliminated that are not delineated in the Constitution. And that means about every one of them. Now, I don't expect that each one will be dropped come next Monday morning. But we should have a plan in which every program is reduced by a minimum of 10 to 25% every year, depending on the program. Each program, if reduced by 10% a year, will save hundreds of billions of tax dollars a year. Jobs will be lost, ladies and gentlemen. But these people need to go into the private sector and become productive citizens to enrich the nation and not to draw money from the nation. You see, as we reduce the government burden, we will increase the opportunities for people who are in the private sector. It really almost becomes a zero-sum game in that case. But we will gain what we lose. So people will be out of jobs, but more jobs will be created, less government will be an obstacle. Less government will no longer be an obstacle. Let's put it that way. Obstacle, to the initiation of enterprise, which is up to each individual, and that's what this country was founded on. The White House staff this year will be reduced by 50%. There's no need to have all of these people. I will not travel as president at all unless it is a conference of the leaders of the world. A G9 conference, for example, or G8, depending on the number of people attending. But traveling to make a speech in Minnesota or California or Dallas, will no longer be permitted. Every time I leave the White House and I get on that airplane, it costs millions and millions of dollars. Not only for Washington, but for the people in the state that I am visiting. We can no longer afford that luxury. I will have to do without. Secondly, I will give up my vacations. I will not travel anywhere because it's too expensive. After I'm out of office, or if I'm impeached, that's fine. When I'm out of office, I'll vacation all I want because I know I'll have plenty of money. I make plenty of money. Now, talking about my salary, I'm reducing my salary the first year by 25%. And I am suggesting that every senator and congressman reduce their salary by 25%. We are in debt. We are no longer raising the debt limit. We are lowering the debt limit. We are going to slowly but surely start increasing the interest rates. Right now, it's 0 to 0.25%, what they call 25 basis points. Makes it sound so big, 25 basis points, 0.25% interest. That is placing our country in a financial malaise. Our interest rates should be in the vicinity. There's no magic number. The marketplace determines that, but typically it's 4 to 6, 7%. What this does is this reduces the rate of inflation, and people will save money because they're getting a return from the government, from their interest. So savings begets converts to investment into business. That's what the savings do. Banks burn. Now, the banks themselves will no longer be allowed to invest. They are savings institutions. We're going back to the old way. A bank is a bank. No longer are they investment houses. They're being divorced immediately. That is being severed. No more crash of 2008 if we can avoid it. Now, the second large phase of my program is to return all troops from around the world, everywhere, whether it be in Korea, Japan, Germany, Vietnam, if we still have them there, which I think we do, the Middle East. All U.S. troops can only reside on American soil. All aircraft carriers will be called in. Aircraft carriers that are not needed, and that would be 3/4 of them, will be dry docked or dismantled. The 3 or 4 aircraft carriers that we may keep will just defend the borders of the United States. We'll have one in the Pacific coast, one on the Atlantic coast, one on the Gulf Coast, and one extra just in case. But we will have a maximum of 4 aircraft carriers, not 14. To give you an idea, ladies and gentlemen, the fuel for modern aircraft carriers is nuclear energy. It costs $60 million a year for one aircraft carrier for 1 year. Folks, you don't have to be a mathematician. Aircraft carriers, $60 million a year, 10 times 60 is, and each aircraft carrier has approximately 4,000 to 6,000 sailors on them. Will defend the United States? Well, we'll have a standing army here, prepared to lead us. But we are all defenders of this nation. Will we need to defend our nation? Most likely we will not, because we will make friends with everyone. And one way we will do that is that any embargo on any nation for any reason will be eliminated. Free enterprise will reign. If you have a company and you have a product and you want to sell to someone else, do so. Traders don't fight. Traders are friendly. Traders are not enemies. Now you ask, well, what about Iran? If Iran wants a nuclear reactor, we should help them build it. If Israel has a problem with that, that's Israel's problem. But we don't think Iran is going to attack Israel, just as we know that Israel is not going to attack Iran. That's all political posturing, and it's very costly, mostly for the United States. And quite frankly, folks, it's none of our business. Remember what Eisenhower said, no foreign entanglements. All drones will be dry docked. Drones will be used nowhere. We will not drop bombs on any country. We will not interfere with any country. We will free trade with every country. Any defense treaty we have with any country I will now make null and void. Everyone that we deal with, we will deal with on a friendly basis. But it won't be government to government. It will be people to people. No one 7,000 miles from here who we have no beef with, we have no conflict with, that we trade with, that we help, is going to decide, let's go kill everyone in America. That's the type of propaganda that's been perpetrated on the American people, and the American psyche has been absolutely warped because of that. We will close any and all bases around the world. Everything, we will become absolutely transparent. That alone, folks, we will save hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Now, the soldiers coming home will face the same problem as those people who are going to lose their job because we're eliminating government programs. However, because of the savings, our industry will flourish. We will once again become the industrial powerhouse of the world, and there'll be more than enough jobs for everyone. Initially, there will be some pain, but if we don't go through this pain, we are courting disaster. The Department of Veteran Affairs will be eliminated. Why? Not because I'm anti-veteran, it's because if we have no troops, now not eliminated immediately, but within the next 10 years. Because if we have troops nowhere in the world but the United States, there will be no need for a Department of Veteran Affairs. Because people will serve here. It'll be just like a job. After they serve their time, if they want to serve a particular period of time, they go back into the private sector. They should not be treated any differently than any other citizen. All right? There will be absolutely no bailouts of the banking industry. If we go through a depression, better we go through a depression and get it over with and make the banks fail. There'll be no farm subsidies. There'll be no ethanol subsidies. There'll be no such thing as too big to fail. There will be a repeal of FATCA. That's the Federal Account Tax Compliance Act. If you're overseas and you earn overseas, we don't want to know that. That's your business. And we will not burden other countries around the world to do our tax work for them. Now, some of the other departments that I will eliminate will be the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Welfare, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Education, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Finance, the Internal Revenue Service, and others as needed. Now, will they all disappear immediately? No. But there will be a mandate where they each are reduced by 10% each year within 10 years. These will be dinosaurs never to be seen again. There is no need for any of these. Now, the way we replace the Internal Revenue Service is we initiate a fair tax, in other words, a sales tax. And we exempt necessities such as food. So if a rich person wants to go out and buy a multi-million dollar yacht, they will pay $1 million in sales tax. If you go out and buy yourself something else that's small, you'll pay the same amount sales tax. Everyone gets charged the same amount percentage-wise. But it all depends on how much you spend. But you get to keep every dime out of your paycheck. Now, Social Security will be kept intact. But those people who are contributing, the monies that we are saving today will go to pay for Social Security recipients today, but the Social Security tax will be reduced by 10% a year, then to zero. However, those people who have contributed will be receiving a smaller amount or nothing. Understand that. Because we cannot continue. Either we do that, or that when it comes time for you to receive your Social Security, the entire system is collapsed, or the dollar isn't worth anything. Take your medicine whichever way you want. I'm looking long term. All foreign aid, regardless of the country, will be discontinued immediately. Not a dime to anyone. I will not ask our American people to work so this Congress, this government, can give this money to someone else. Every public official who's elected into office will serve one term and one term only. And none of this shenanigans, I ran for senator, and I ran for Congress, and now run for senator so I can run again. No. You want to be a congressman, you serve one term. No reelection, no second time around. That breeds a lot of inbreeding, number one. And secondly, it brings in donations so that the people in office can then pay back those people who put them in office. If they know they're going to be there 1 year, they will be reluctant to do so. And during the election, there will be no campaigning allowed. I'll tell you, if I'm going to put one restriction, and that's on campaigning. What we're going to do is we're going to have each person present in television debates their positions. But every person will be given the exact same amount of time. None of this central placing on television, those Hillary Clintons, if you will, and the Barack Obamas get in the middle, and then the Ron Pauls and the others, are all the way in the end. Start until 3 months before the election. Give you plenty to understand where people, no deductions, there will be no campaigns, no PACs. The Federal Reserve Bank will be done away with. That system is gone. We will print our own money, and we will back our money by gold or silver, by a precious metal. It could be platinum. It makes no difference. But we will start by saying that the United States currency will be backed after we audit the Fed, get our money, and put it all into the U.S. Treasury. All the gold transfers to the U.S. Treasury, and we find out how much we have. We'll determine the proportion of gold to dollars. And we may start with 3 to 5% of the US dollar is backed by gold. And every year that will be increased. Eventually, at least 50% of our currency will be backed by gold and silver. Each one of our coins will have enough metal in it to justify the amount of money that it's printed on it. So a 25-cent piece will have at least 25 cents worth of metal in it. In other words, we will have a hard currency once again. And I know the argument against that. The argument against that is that we'll have a hard currency we won't be able to export because all the other currencies will be cheap. Eventually, no country has ever gone broke because it had a hard currency. Look at the Swiss. They've always done very well. Initially, we will have people thinking that if we have a hard currency, we won't be able to sell overseas. And initially, that is correct. But after a while, our products will become so much more favorable to the rest of the world and people will want our currency that they will trade with us. Before we get started, it's almost hour. Let us stop for station identification. And this is your president speaking. Don't go away. We will be right back.
You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Political talk derived from a historical perspective. Not always palatable, but good food for thought. Pure libertarian talk with host Joe Cristiano. LibertyTalkRadio.com.
Express Test is your go-to company for on-site occupational health testing services. That's right, we said on-site. That means we will meet you at your facility for a free health and occupational safety consultation. Express Test specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Ranch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires. For a free consultation, call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthywilldone.com.
This isn't your typical talk radio show. This is Liberty Talk Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Joe Cristiano. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm playing the part of the President of the United States giving a revised State of the Union message. Now, if for those of you who've heard the first part, know that it's pretty radical, right? But it's not radical in the sense of our history. If I was giving this speech 100 years ago, people would say, so what? That's what we're supposed to be doing. But we have become so conditioned to receiving permission from the federal government, receiving money from the federal government, receiving licensing from the federal government, receiving the approval of the federal government before we do anything, that everything I'm saying sounds radical. When our country was founded, it was founded on these principles. And people would say, what are you saying that for? If I did this 100 years ago, they'd say, what are you saying that for? You know, of course not. We know that. What's new? But today, this is all new to us. So we are going to go back to our roots. Now, we went through about 10 or so precepts that we're going to change altogether. And I encourage you, if you're just coming in now, is to listen to our broadcast on libertytalkradio.com. And listen to the first half. I think you'll find it interesting. And I would like to hear from you. Our number is 646-652-4620 or 888-773-4496, toll free. Now, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your comments, your opinions, but I want to hear your criticisms. We need to open up this dialogue to truly understand where we're going with all of this. Right? We need to be one. We need to be one in our minds. We need to all understand. It's not good enough to say something that sounds good. Most things that are right don't sound right because they're difficult. We've become a nation of what's the easiest way out. And so we have these platitudes, and it always winds up in disaster and costing us and exasperating the very problem we're trying to resolve. Now, also, you can, if you tweet, you can Twitter us. Tweet us on. If you tweet, you can. if you're on Twitter, you can tweet us. I love that on Twitter at Liberty Joe, and also on Facebook, Liberty Talk Radio on Liberty Talk Radio on Facebook as well. You can listen to us on TuneIn, as well as Liberty Express Radio, Blog Talk Radio, and of course we stream 24 hours a day. So you can't miss us. You got to find us somewhere. But we do encourage your feedback. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. It is now 7:28 on the hour. And, I've been broadcasting now for almost 25 minutes, 35 minutes. And we're going to finish this before 9 o'clock. But I do want to get through a few other suggestions, not suggestions, but edicts from the President of the United States, the pseudo-President of the United States, to the nation. And I'll continue this by saying, thank you for tuning back in, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, senators, and congressmen, members of the House, and Mr. and Mrs. America. Effective immediately, the following 3 rules. If you want to take drugs, go girl, go. Go guy, go. It's up to you. A drug culture. People don't OD on aspirins because you can go to your local supermarket or pharmacy and buy a bottle of 500 for $4.95. All right? Make it illegal. I can guarantee you there'll be every crook on the book, on the block, selling aspirins on the side, making a fortune, and using that money illegally. We're going to end the war on drugs, and at the same time, anyone in prison because of committing a crime relative to drugs, because of possession, a nonviolent crime related to drugs, will be released immediately, every one of them. Now, talking about the war on drugs, then we're going to end the war on poverty. If you want to end poverty, encourage people to look introspectively to themselves, to see what can I do to survive. Everyone must survive on their own and become a better person. The government will cease being an enabler. Now, we won't end the war on poverty immediately, but it will be reduced 10% every year. Now, all these programs will save at least $1 trillion a year. At least $1 trillion a year. We will become a creditor nation again. We will be in the black. We will be the strongest nation on earth. We will be trading with everyone. Industry will be flourishing. Detroit will soon, within 10 years, be the manufacturing powerhouse that it was 50 years ago. We will also end the war on terror, which I never understood in the first place. The war on terror is over. There is no terror. If there's going to be a war, let's have a war on unkindness, okay? But we're not going to have any of these stupid wars, and all departments related to those wars are going to be disbanded immediately. Not partially, but immediately. Now, our Constitution will be reinstated as the law of the land. If it's not delineated or permitted in our Constitution, basically the natural law, the Constitution basically relies on natural law. It won't be done. The government won't do it. You can do it, but the government won't do it for you. Now, here's a tough one that people won't understand. Our borders will be open. Now, instead of walls, we will build we will build stations where people can come to and sign up to come into America. Now, we'll make sure that they don't carrying any diseases or anything like that. We'll get their names, their fingerprints, and whatever, and they can come here and work. Now, people say, oh, we'll be flooded, absolutely flooded throughout the United States with people, people coming to the United States, and we won't be able to handle all of these people. Well, folks, I have a surprise for you. There are more people immigrating into Mexico than there are people in Mexico immigrating to the United States. Find it as a shock, don't you? All right? So don't worry about that. In fact, we may have more immigration, and that's good because we need immigration. You see, our society is getting older. There are not young people doing the work that we did when we were young. When we were young, many years ago, we had hard labor jobs. We worked in construction, we mowed lawns, we did things like that. We don't have that many people doing it, and those people who are young are not doing those jobs. They're too home playing with the downloading apps. We need people who are willing to work, and these people will help America thrive, and we welcome them all. Now, you say, well, what about all those people who want to come in illegally? Well, those people who want to come in illegally to do harm won't be coming through our borders. Our borders are over 9,000 miles long. They will find a crease in that. They will find a little slot in 9,000 miles to come across. It's very easy. In fact, if I wanted to come to the United States to do irreparable harm to the United States, you think I would go through a checkpoint? You think I would try to climb over a wall? No, I just take a boat, land it on the beach in Galveston, walk off, and bingo, I'm here. There's no border patrol. I mean, we have to understand that this is a mirage, that we have closed borders. No such thing. Remember, the borders are all around the United States, all the way around. It's over 9,000 miles of border. And you not only have borders from land to land, but sea to land. And there's no way to control that. The only way to truly control that is not to make any enemies. Then they won't come here and want to do us any harm. They want to come here, but they want to trade and work. Those are the people we want, just like they did 100 years ago. Lobbying in Washington will be outlawed. I think I had mentioned this before. And by the way, the punishment for lobbying after we pass this law will be severe. I mean, you will get a minimum of 10 years in prison. And it won't be one of these funny prisons, these, pseudo country club prisons. It'll be hardcore. Also, we will close all private prisons. No more private prisons. Right now, we have a private prison system which encourages people to be arrested because they make money based on the number of inmates. If they don't have enough inmates, they lose money. They want crime. So we will close all private prisons. First of all, we won't need them. And maybe we'll turn them into factories. We won't give them away. Worst comes to worst, we'll just dismantle them, knock them down, clean the place out, sell the land. Talking about land, we will also sell back all of the land, or give all of the land that the federal government now owns, give it back to the individual states. The federal government will own no land. But it may have offices in each place, right, with the permission of those states. Now, another point I'm going to bring out is that what we want to do is we want to ensure the sovereignty of the states, which has been eroded over the past 50 years. We want to make sure that the states trump the federal government. The federal government should act as a cohesive device for all the states to coexist, not to run the states. Right? States have the right to be what they want to be. If you live in Kansas and you don't like Kansas, move to Oklahoma, move to Nebraska, move to New York, wherever you want to be. And gun control will no longer be allowed because the citizens are going to be the army protecting this country. So gun control will not be permitted. Everyone will be permitted to own whatever gun they wish. Now, I know you can say, oh, people are going to kill each other. The only place people are killing each other are those places where strict gun controls have been enacted. Think about that. Let's see. I think that's about it, folks. I about ran out of steam. Do we have any callers online? All right, we have someone on the line right now. Hello, caller.
Hello, Joe.
Oh yes, but boy, it's loud. Hold
Is
on.
that from my end or what? I hope not.
I don't know. We're having our board check that out. Let's check that out. Can you lower that a little bit? It's okay. Why don't you try this again?
Hello, Joe. How you doing?
Okay, you sound much better now. Thank you very much for calling in. Now you're our experiment. You know that today because
Yes,
you
I
will
do.
appear on the screen with me, split screen. This will be the very, very first time that Liberty Talk Radio has a split screen capability. And so when we interview people from all over the world, which we will be doing within the next 2 weeks, interviewing people from all over the world, they will be on the screen with me as if they're in the studio, which I'm really excited about because there are dozens of people that are just waiting to be on this program. Now, your name is
Joe,
Gary.
Yes,
Your
I'm
name
Gary
is Gary
Murphy, and we're so close and personal. I'm going to take a couple icebreaker breath mints. This is so real. It's like being in the same room with you.
Yes, you're on the air. You know, you're on the air.
I
You're
know
on
it.
TV. Right?
We're connected.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have you listened to the first part of my program at all?
Yes.
Okay. What are your comments, please?
Well, my comments are I don't know whether I've been asked to talk because you want me to be the counterpart. You know how they do on the traditional news.
Be whatever you want.
Yeah,
Be
and they come
whatever
on,
you
and
want.
but I can't do it because you're all over the road. I don't know if I could be a libertarian or an anarchist or
What difference does it make? But Gary, what difference does it make?
It really doesn't. But you know how they do it on the news. I'm just
I
trying
know.
to.
Let me tell you what I'm a botanist.
I don't know which side of the road I should take a counterpoint. But I agree with most everything you say. And the only thing I would debate you on, Joe, on what you said this morning, Mr. President,
Thank you.
would be the borders, because you do have a border program. It's a loosey-goosey, and it's a workable solution, I think, with a few adjustments. But that would be the only place that I would probably debate the details, you might say.
All right, give me your alternative.
Okay. Well, my alternative is I like the things that you say. However, I think that in the borders, it's just like, I think you got to break everything down to the home unit, local. You got to go down local and think, if this is a local house, if I have a house, I've got walls and I got some locks on the doors. The reason I got locks on the doors, I don't want people invading me. I keep security around my family. That's my family. And countries, if you're going to declare you're a country with a certain set of values, then you need to protect those values if you really believe in them. So there should be a policy in place that handles, like you said, people could come to the border, register to be workers. I think that's all wonderful. That's perfect. But there has to be somewhat, if you're going to be a government, you're going to be, I heard a quote this weekend on Facebook. It said something like, if you're, it was about chickens, and it was funny. And it's like a chicken, it's like saying if you're a libertarian and you believed in limited government, it's like you were a vegetarian and you ate chicken. So, and I didn't quite 100% believe that statement. I don't think that's correct, because unless I don't understand libertarian, I guess there's a big, wide, belief system in libertarian. There's those who are on the edge of libertarian, leaning to no government at all, and then, which I see that there's a lot of people that believe that. And then there's libertarian who believe that libertarianism is the basis of all laws that you would create within a government. If it doesn't fit the litmus test of being a liberty concept, it doesn't go. We don't pass it. We don't get involved with it. So that's I'm somewhere in between, and so somewhere in between is where I think my views on borders are. There has to be, if you have a certain set of values and a certain set of protections for the government or the association you have with others in your geographic area. It might get down to if you were in tribal situation, you were an Indian tribe of some type in some country somewhere in a very primitive setting, you'd still have a group of laws that protect you and your kind, you might say, and not to exclude anyone else, not to wage war on anyone else, but just as this is my house and this is how we do things in my house. So there you go.
All right. Let's assume for a second that you are a crazed terrorist for whatever reason, and even take it out of the context as we have today, but you want to do harm. You're just a nutcake, and you live in another country, and you want to come to the United States, and you just want to perpetuate all sorts of havoc and whatever, right? How difficult would it be to get into the United States?
Well, I'm not worried about that. I know it would be very hard at all. It isn't hard right now.
You can walk in. Let me give you an example.
In the country, you can walk in.
Right now,
but that doesn't exclude the fact that I have rules, and if I catch you doing that, I'm going to kill your butt.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, but if you came in here and did that, then you would be a criminal. Let me give you an example. I was in Europe once, and I was on a street between France and Switzerland. And I didn't know I was on the borderline. But there was a concrete structure. It was about 4 feet tall, square. And on one side it said F, and the other side it had S. And I looked at it, and I asked somebody, I said, what is that? They said, oh, on that side you're in Switzerland, on this side you're in France. In the middle of the street. I mean, there was no delineation other than that. And there were just people coming and going. And I thought to myself, where's the border control? Where's the cops? Where are the soldiers? I mean, there were just old 3-story apartment buildings, and people walking around like walking in their own neighborhood. In other words, the neighborhood on the F side was no different than the neighborhood on the S side. Now, the problem with our perception of we need to protect the borders, yes, now, if there were a battalion of 20,000 tanks coming over, obviously, a few Border Patrol people are not going to stop that. But we would know that we have radar and we have satellites and all that. But we cannot stop a person, an individual coming over. I lived in Houston. I used to go down to Galveston. And I love Galveston Beach. But one thing about Galveston that I didn't like is that I like the rougher water, the bigger waves, because you can walk out for like a half a mile and still be in knee-high water, And I thought to myself, if someone wanted to come to the United States, they can park a rowboat a half mile out and walk in and come to the United States. There's no one there. In fact, they stop on the beach. You can sun yourself for a while, have a hot dog, and you're gone. So it's totally unrealistic to say, well, the undesirable, we don't know who they are. We don't know if a person who's desirable or looks desirable comes here, whether they'll become undesirable. So open borders are the only thing that makes sense. We never had that problem until we start closing our borders. Just think about that. You know what,
Joe, but you know why that is? That's because we got a whole list of other things that create a problem. Now, if in your State of the Union here, of course, if you were running things would be different because you wouldn't have welfare either. No, as we know it today.
We wouldn't have welfare. No war on terror.
Well,
wouldn't be interfering with other countries.
Welfare, I know, but now that we have welfare, this whole issue comes up that they say, well, you can't just let anybody come in here and get free health care on the backs of the taxpayers in this country. Well, you shouldn't even have it. So that's really something you'd have to change exactly at the same time here. Number two, I'm not so concerned about somebody coming in, crazies coming in and doing things to you. Because if you're not doing some of the things we're doing right now around the world, you wouldn't have those crazies doing that. And the few that you would have crazy that, hated you for your freedom, laugh out loud, would be, you'd take them out in some type of skirmish that they tried. You'd hunt them down if they did something wrong, and you'd punish them for it. So, but the fact is, for years and years and years in Mexico, we didn't have any major border patrol. We had a couple uniformed officers in the big highways where you bring in goods and services through the highway system, in trucks. You had probably, some border guards there, and they weren't stretched along like some kind of demilitarized zone or something like we have today. It's like I think it's because our whole government is so warmongering and such a militarized police force, and that everything has to do with, we've got we're a bunch of afraid people that, thinks everybody's after us, and, we're like a bunch of rich people live in gated communities, and it's ridiculous. It's completely gotten out of skewed here, and and I agree with you. It is wrong what we're doing now. Got a war on immigration. I mean, they got a war on drugs, got a war on immigration. You got a war on this and a war on that. Now we got a war on measles. If you've even caught 10 minutes of the news over the weekend,
they never work. I initiated in my own home a war on shopping. My wife didn't stop.
Right. There
that doesn't work. You see, I assume you missed the very first portion of my broadcast, in that one of the first programs to go would be the war on poverty. In other words, all welfare is gone. All enabling by the government is gone. So when you come in here, and let's assume now we can't stop it altogether. Maybe we reduce it 10% a year over a 10-year period. But if you come in here, no one is eligible. No one could now sign up. Only those people that are on it will receive 10% less every year. Those people who want to apply, there is no place to apply because the welfare offices are going to be closed. Ain't nowhere to go. You have to do for yourself. So if they come in, they have to do it on their own. So I agree with you. There should be no problem. And one of the main reasons why we have a border patrol like in Southern California is because of drugs. Well, there's going to be no more drug war because drugs are going to be legal. We're going to make it legal. We're going to make it so unprofitable. Drugs will proliferate to a point where you can buy a joint for 19 cents and you're not going to have drug wars. In fact, Mexico will thrive through this because right now most of the small towns of Mexico are run by the drug laws financed by the U.S. drug policy. And once that happens, the people will take over once again. They will become a richer nation. When they become a richer nation, you will find less people immigrating into the United States because why go there? We have it better here. You see how one perpetuates the other. All the way down the line. It does. The war on drugs is so stupid. If people would just stop. Good people are against, drug use, but then they think a law is going to keep people from taking drugs. And they think if they're going to legalize it or decriminalize it or whatever you want to call it, drug traffic, then everybody will just stop doing what they're doing, drinking wine in the evening or something like that, and all become crackheads. They jump from, a person using alcohol to a responsible level that if the law changed, then all of those people would become crackheads. Right. That's just insane thinking, and that's how they think. Now, yes, would kids get involved in maybe a drug rather than alcohol? Probably, but they would do one or the other or both. It really doesn't matter. They're a sick person that needs drugs to make them get by. That's the problem. We need to deal with what makes people think they have to have any kind of hang up to get. That's an addiction problem. Gary,
and we're going to have an addiction problem regardless.
Gary, let me interrupt you for a second. We have someone who wants a question. Hold on a second.
All right.
Don't go away. Caller, you're on the line. Your first name and where you're calling from, please.
Joe, this is Lloyd.
Oh, Lloyd.
Real quick, your guest there hit on what I've thought for a long time, and that is the fact that the border is not a problem except the fact that we call ourselves a nation and we give the nation the power.
Good point.
If all the property was owned by private individuals. The private individuals would control the border just like Disneyland controls its border to keep people out or let people in, and they charge them.
That's right. I agree.
It's all a matter of market forces. People would allow the people to come over that they wanted to come over, and if they didn't, they would use their own private security forces. It's all because we've given our authority over to a federal government that has nationalized everything, and now they are the ones in control. And the private individual is no longer responsible.
Lloyd, good point. I can bring that further. You know, I sort of like the American Indian mannerism when it comes to the ownership of land. No one owns the land. You can use it, and while you're there using it, you know, people should not interfere. But then after you've finished whatever you're doing, you know, because of the temperature, the climate, or whatever, you move on, someone else can move in. And I someday we're going to have a long conversation about that. But Lloyd, thank you so much for calling in. We only have about a minute to go, so we need to close up the program. I want to thank you very much for calling in, Lloyd. And Gary, thank you very much for calling in and participating in our experiment on a split screen. And with that, I bid both of you goodbye. Thank you very much, guys, for calling in. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
And let's see. And folks, this is, let's see, where are we? Here we go. This is the end of today's program. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. Until next time, I'm Joe Cristiano. This is Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well. Stay tuned.